All right, thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind. I'm Mike, as always. I got my buddy Alex with me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
I'm I'm stressed out this week because I'm going on a little vacation up to visit some buddies who are all vaccinated, and I'm fully vaccinated. So I'm gonna go stay with one of my good friends for a couple of days up in San Francisco, and I've got a
Nice.
lot of stuff I've got to get done before I go on Thursday. So,
I'm also going out of town for a few days this weekend.
oh, where are you headed?
My good friends Sal and Danielle are getting married, and we're going
Yeah,
out to
congrats to Sal and Danielle.
we're gonna go spend the weekend with them in Joshua Tree.
Oh, nice. That's fun. That's fun. Katrina and I've been wanting to go out to Joshua Tree, and we just haven't. But I'm excited to get away. I haven't had any like real time off since the pandemic started, so I'm looking
Well,
forward to just taking a couple of days.
yeah. We need to do a couples D&D night anyway. So maybe if that goes well, we can take a couples trip out to Palm Springs sometimes.
Yeah, we do. We've been talking about doing a D&D thing for a while with the four of us, so we need to get that going. I need to teach you guys how to play and teach you guys how to build
Well,
the.
Scarlett's a pro. She's probably
Oh,
better than you
cool.
are.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Maybe she can run the game and I can play. I haven't played in years. I keep
I
getting
mean,
stuck teaching people how to play,
She might be into
and
that.
then
She'll appreciate not having to teach someone.
yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, generally, we talk about remakes and reboots and whether or not the remake should have been made or whatnot. But periodically, we like to kind of break the mold and do topic episodes. And this time, we're going to be talking about twin movies. So, for those of you who don't know what a twin movie is, no, we're not talking about the Danny DeVito Arnold Schwarzenegger film. A twin
But
movie is two movies that come out very close together with very similar premises, and they almost like shameful ripoffs of each other, but generally it's two different studios and they were both in development and they just happen to come out at the same time. So probably the most famous example would be Armageddon and Deep Impact. But even more recently, we had the Channing Tatum movie, White House Down, and then Mount Olympus Has Fallen. Not Mount Olympus Has Fallen, just Olympus Has Fallen. And then, we had a few years back, we had separate Snow White movies coming at the same time. So it's a pretty common
Godzilla.
thing. Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla and the
Yeah, I
remake.
guess technically Shin Godzilla and 2014 Godzilla, 2 years apart, are kind of similar. Those were both reboots of an American franchise and a Japanese franchise. But this is definitely a topic that we will come back to. What we're going to be talking about this week is what, Alex?
We're talking about Volcano and Dante's Peak.
Yep. So by the end of this, what we want to do is we're going to discuss both movies, and then we're going to assign one of these movies as the Armageddon and one of them as the Deep Impact, because generally when these come out, there's one that's a little bit more, I don't want to say highbrow, but generally there's one that's a little bit more polished and held in higher regard. And then there's one that's just kind of like, oh, that was just a popcorn flick, shameless money grab kind of thing. And Armageddon was definitely that, and Deep Impact was kind of the more highbrow, more dramatic version.
Artsy.
So artsy. And not to say that, I'm sure we'll talk about those two movies when we come back and revisit this topic at some point. But yeah, I'm ready to talk about this. I'm really excited. I had a blast watching both of these fucking movies.
Yeah, you said you wanted to talk about the grandma in Dante's Peak a whole lot, so I'm excited to hear what you thought about her.
So just that, it's funny that you brought that up because Dante's Peak is the one that I'm probably a little more attached to. Katrina loves that movie. We covered it on Ruin My Childhood a couple years back, and we probably watched that movie every 2-3 years or so. So I've watched Dante's Peak several times over the last decade.
Wow.
But I don't think I've watched Volcano since elementary school, middle school. I think I've seen Volcano twice overall, and I'd say there was the first few years it came out.
I don't think I've seen either of these in the last 10 years, but I feel like I have, or going into watching both these, I feel like I had more vivid memories of Volcano than Dante's Peak. Dante's Peak
Interesting.
felt a little bit more forgettable for me, and that's not that's not a comment on the movie itself at all. It's just like
That's
me
just your
being
experience
12
with
years old going into it, and
Yeah, interesting. So it's definitely funny that we have the opposite ones because and you brought up the old lady, which is probably the most infamous scene in the in Dante's Peak, where the grandma jumps in the acidic lake. But I definitely have a lot to talk about with the grandma overall in that movie. So I'll just did you want to start with Dante's Peak? Is that
Yeah,
where we're
let's
gonna
start with Dante's Peak. Why don't you
Cool.
give us a quick breakdown of the
So
the story.
Dante's Peak, starring Pierce Brosnan and Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton. They are in this small town, which is the second most desirable place to live in the country, with a population under 20,000.
Very specific, but they're proud.
Yeah. So Pierce Brosnan is a geologist, volcanologist, and he was brought into the town because there was
That's like a Trekkie, right?
Yeah. He's actually a deeply distant cousin to Leonard Nimoy's Spock.
Yeah.
But he's brought in. He's on vacation, but he's brought into this town to see what's going on because there's some interesting seismic activity in this what they thought was a dormant volcano. And he had a very traumatic incident 4 years prior where his girlfriend or wife or just some significant other died in a tragic. Was it a fiance?
Yeah.
Yeah. His significant other, his partner, had a tragic accident. No, yeah. I'm trying to normalize the term partner.
I think he said
bud.
fiance. Anyway.
Yeah, he did, but I'm normalizing partner.
Okay.
Okay,
well,
man.
you're erasing his perspective.
So anyway, the start of the movie. He's like driving around in his truck during a volcanic eruption, and his fiance partner got her head caved in by volcanic debris. And it fast forwards 4 years later, he goes to this town to kind of investigate a possible volcanic eruption, and that's essentially what happens. It's just him dealing with the town and his boss saying, "Nah, there's no volcano. You're crazy, Pierce Brosnan. Go back to GoldenEye." And he's like, "Nah, there's totally a volcano." And then the volcano erupts, and it's just a disaster movie at that point.
It's a fight for survival.
Yeah.
A high octane, no holds barred, white knuckle thriller.
But I had fun watching this movie.
And they fall in love along the way.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Like, I know a lot of people like Linda Hamilton. She's not my cup of tea, but it's pretty crazy how many characters are like, man, I've never seen a mayor that looks like her. Like, they were really trying to sell that she's very hot and attractive.
Yeah, and like she's a beautiful woman, but she's also like not a supermodel.
No.
And they dress her up like very plain in this movie.
I mean, it's very 90s small town mom. Like, baggy blouse, mom jeans, like, there's nothing in here that screams like, oh my God, she's so hot. But like, everybody in this town and all the geologists that come from wherever they came from are just thirsty for her. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
Let's run through the story a little bit quickly, but with a little bit more detail, right?
Yeah.
So Pierce Brosnan is brought into town, and he goes to meet the mayor, and she sort of shows him around, and these two people, these two like hikers, go to a hot spring and end up being dead, right? And they come upon these bodies, and Pierce Brosnan is like, I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of volcanic activity going on here, and he tries to warn his boss, what's his name, Henry Callahan or something?
Yeah.
He tries to warn his boss that there's some stuff going on, and his boss sort of pulls the Jaws mayor thing where he's like, listen, we don't want to worry these people and ruin the economy of this little town. They just won this prestigious second place award, and if we shut down the town now and nothing happens, we're going to kill the economy of this little town.
Which, to be fair, I actually didn't mind that, because he mentioned that when he was younger and in the same position that Pierce Brosnan was in, he evacuated the town and nothing happened, so he just doesn't want that to happen again. So I think it was a valid concern.
That's some nice drama, because you understand where he's coming from, but from Pierce Brosnan's point of view, it's also like, well, I'm an expert and you sent me to do this thing.
You pulled me out of my vacation.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm an expert. You sent me here to do this thing. I'm telling you what I think, and now you're ignoring me, and you're basing it on, your own fears and your own guilt or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's, it's a nice little dramatic problem.
Yeah.
You can argue both sides. So anyway, things keep on getting, Pierce keeps on seeing signs that things are going to get worse. Callahan doesn't believe him, and along the way, him and the mayor sort of start flirting. This is over the course of like 36 hours, right? And then
definitely less than it was a little bit more than a week, because there is a line of dialogue where after a week they're like, it's been a week and nothing's changed. I guess we can go home.
Oh, I missed that.
We've got all the equipment still here. So if anything happens, we'll come back. So
Right.
it's about a week and a half when all is said and done.
So just as Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton are about to fuck, poor Pierce Brosnan, but neither one of them I think has taken a
They
lover
say it's
in
been like
4
years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucked up. So just as they're about to fuck, some like rusty water comes out of the faucet, and Pierce is like, "Oh no, that's Volcano's 101. That means this shit's gonna erupt." And they call a town hall meeting to be like, "Hey guys, things might be fucked." And as they're talking about it, the volcano erupts. So from that moment on, it's just like, we need to get the fuck out of here. And Linda Hamilton's kids go up the mountain to go and try and convince their grandmother, who is Linda Hamilton's ex-husband's mom, to get off the mountain. And she refuses to. So now they have to go up and get these kids. And as they're up there, the lava comes down and destroys the house. And they have to paddle across the river or the lake, right?
Yeah.
And then they drive a car down, and then they drive the car through lava, and that gets fucked up. This guy gets a car stuck in water, and he gets a car stuck in lava, both in the same movie.
So no, he made it through the water.
I mean, the car gets
Yeah.
it got stuck for a moment. He has car troubles.
Yeah. What I thought was really funny was, so one of the things I want to say off the top that I think is amazing about this movie is there is, of course, some early, or late 90s CG, but it's used very sparingly. It's only for some of the smoke and ash effects, but generally this movie is done practically with a lot of miniature work. So pretty much
The smoke and ash are practical. They're just added digital on top to sweeten it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of practical ash.
When you actually see the ash over the volcano, that's digital, like the big cloud. But for the most part, this is a practical movie. So I just want to say off the top, I fucking love miniatures, and I love when they do this. Like when the town is crumbling, it looks fantastic, and they did an amazing job with the compositing, with all the actual actors in front of the buildings crumbling and whatnot. Like it's pretty seamless. I think this movie is a special effects masterpiece, and it wasn't even nominated because it went up against like Titanic and a couple Starship Troopers and a couple other movies. So there's just like, it didn't even have a shot. But I thought the effects on this were incredible. But to your point about the water, I thought it was really funny. Is at a point when you mentioned there's a big town hall and they have everybody there and they're talking about the evacuation plan, and then there's an earthquake and the volcano starts erupting while the entire town is in this one building. Somehow Linda Hamilton and Pierce Brosnan, even though they're the last ones in the room as everybody's panicking and getting out of like the auditorium, they're the first ones out the door somehow. And then they're just in their giant Jeep and they're just crashing into civilians. They don't give a shit. And then he goes across the river, and as they're driving across the river, she's like, "Oh shit, there's water coming." He's like, "Don't worry, I got a snorkel on the car."
He says, "This rig can take it."
This could take it. And they're just driving across. And then there are a couple other cars going through. And she's the mayor, so she's concerned about her people. She's like, "Oh no, look at that." And he's just like, just super nonchalantly, they're like, "They're crazy. They'll never make it." Like, he doesn't give a fuck about the other people trying to cross the river.
He's right. They shouldn't have done it. I don't know what they're
You're right. But he's just like, they see the expert driving through. And so they follow him. And then he's just like, they're crazy.
Listen, man, people make crazy decisions in a panic.
So
just to wrap up the story, they get the kids, the grandma dies, they come down the mountain, and but the bridge, the dog's okay. The only bridge out of town is destroyed, so they can't get out of town. So they drive into the Linda Hamilton's teenagers' hideout spot, which is an abandoned cave, and they get stuck in there. And Harry is able to set off a what do you call it?
A NASA distress beacon.
A NASA distress beacon.
That's what it was.
Yeah, right. As he gets himself trapped in his car, where he
with a compound fracture.
With a compound fracture, where he remains for 2 days until they find the beacon and get him out, and he saves the family.
Yeah,
and then he takes them on a boat trip. Yeah.
So some of the things that I think are really interesting about this movie is this one definitely takes a more scientific approach, and we'll talk about Volcano later. But like
the director, I think I read the director used to be a geologist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he came from the field. So being accurate was very important to him.
Made a point of doing science. Like he's going and collecting samples at the lake, and he's like, it's a little acidic, but I'm going to have to compare it to the last time a geologist was here 10 years ago. And then they like his team comes in and they bring a robot up to the top and they're taking temperature readings and whatnot. And so like there's a good 20-30 minutes of this movie that's just them doing science.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, interesting. And then
definitely not the way that movie would get made now.
No, not at all. But I really want to spend some time talking about the grandma.
Yeah.
Because the kids steal a truck to go save grandma, and like everyone's like, you can't go get the kids, it's too close to the mountain, like you're gonna get caught. And while they're like trying to talk to the grandma, and she's like, the mountains never hurt us, like we'll be safe here. And then like lava just burst through the wall.
I laughed for a minute straight when that happened.
Because now I'm just gonna say this.
It literally goes from like within 30 seconds, the grandma is like trying to show Linda Hamilton pictures of her son. She's like, look how young he was here. She's like, well, come on, we better get going here. And then immediately the entire wall of the house is overtaken by lava.
Yeah, and then the dog runs out into the woods. But what I thought was interesting, so I actually watched Volcano first and then went back to this one. And so this is the only thing I'm going to say about Volcano versus this for now. But one of the things I thought that was great in Volcano is throughout that movie, they're always like, God damn, it's fucking hot. It's so fucking hot near this lava. Like, they'll be in a building above, like, a lava pool, or they'll be in a train that's surrounded by lava, and they're like, God damn, it's hot. And this one, like, the heat doesn't seem to bother anybody. Like, the lava just comes straight out, and nobody's like, whoo, it's hot. It's hot. Like, it's just there. Like, they would have been feeling that heat a little before, I think, if it was up against the wall. It would have started getting warm in that house.
I feel like the lava in Volcano, when people say that, is like in subway tunnels and shit.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it would the heat would sort of pool up and you'd feel it from further away. This one, they're on the side of a cold mountain, and the lava's moving.
Even when they're in the
lava's
car,
moving faster in this movie, so I could see it creeping up on them. But
yeah.
I think ultimately you're right. But also the dramatic effect of having a lot of lava
burst through the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Burst through the wall is worth,
it's like Mike Myers just breaking through or Michael Myers, not Mike Myers.
It's the Kool-Aid Man. It's the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's hot.
So, but yeah, to get to that scene, I think it's kind of fucked up that they kill the grandma, but like you want to have a few deaths of characters that you know. So really the only deaths that we see are the grandma and then like the boss. The boss is set, he's taking
Callahan.
too long to get across the bridge, and then the bridge collapses. He's just like, bye guys. Then there's a Wilhelm scream as he gets thrown off the bridge.
Yeah, I thought his death scene was like pretty effective until the Wilhelm scream, and I was like, they gave him one.
Yeah. But go ahead.
I was gonna say the grandma and. Well, let me back up. I was surprised at how few people died in this movie, or at least how few deaths that we felt. I felt like they had that whole crew, like the whole volcanologist team, and one of them could have died, or another one besides Callahan, and we didn't see any deaths of the townspeople.
Just a couple, just the rich asshole and the helicopter pilot that was an asshole.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did see the helicopter crash.
And that was another thing that I appreciated.
I felt the death way less in this movie versus Volcano, and I felt like it lowered the stakes a little bit.
I think that's fair. So the grandma scene, the thing that I think kind of makes it futile is the fact that like they go out there to save her, and then she sacrifices herself to save her family, but it's like they risk their lives to save you. So it's like I don't think she's heroic by doing that, because she's the one who put them in danger in the first place by not.
Well, but she didn't ask them to come up the hill. The kids decided to do that. That's
right.
Really
but also
fault.
Like, come on, like listen to these people.
But that's also why she died, and that's Callahan died because he didn't heed Pierce Brosnan's warnings.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I liked about her, I don't want to say I liked her death. But funny enough, like our cats were being like dickheads when that scene was on, so I like got up to go take care of them. And I came back and I missed that whole thing, so I had to rewind it to watch the grandma croak. But I did think it was interesting how like it wasn't an immediate death. Like her legs got severely burned and she pushed it. I did think it was silly that she pushes the boat up against the dock and then proceeds to walk further, to walk an extra 15, 20 feet to the shore versus pulling herself up off the dock and walking the rest of the way.
I pinged on that too, but again, like people make decisions in life or death situations, and that's just what she chose to do. And also, what's she gonna do? She's gonna pull herself on the dock.
Pierce Brosnan was there. If she just went to the dock, he could have lifted her up.
It's a life or death situation. People do crazy
but
things.
I just think it's funny. Like there's so many things, but
I liked her character because I don't think we really have time to like get into the whole thing between her and Linda Hamilton, but I think there's like there's a moment before she dies where she says like, my son was a fool for leaving you or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gives Linda Hamilton like some closure that she needed.
I agree. I thought that was a really touching moment.
Yeah. But my main thing that I liked about the grandma is that they made her this character that's like a religious zealot almost. And you could say she gets her comeuppance, or I guess she sort of learns, not learns her lesson. What's the word? She comes around when she sacrifices herself to save her family.
Yeah.
But like you said when we first saw her character, she's very like, oh, I've lived here my whole life and this mountain will never hurt me and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's a mountain. What do you mean it's not going to hurt you? It's going to do whatever it wants to do.
Whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
You've
whatever
also
it's
never
going
experienced
to do,
a volcano
do
before.
Anything. Yeah.
Like you've never had an eruption before. This has been dormant for 1,000 years. Like this is a new activity for you.
Yeah, she's very she feels very like Manifest Destiny or something. She's very like old world America's, like nothing bad can happen. I'm a good person. I've done good my whole life, and I could stay put where I am and blah blah blah. Yeah.
And she's just stubborn. She's the greatest generation. So the actor was born in 1929. So it's like she was born the year of the Great Depression, and you can extrapolate that the character would have had a similar upbringing. So they're stubborn. They're going to stay with what they know. But overall, I thought it was a fun movie.
Arrogant, in the face of nature.
But overall, I think this was a fun, solid movie. In the last 45 minutes or so, when it's a disaster film, like it has some genuinely good set pieces, and the miniature work is fantastic, and it's composited really well. I really enjoy it. Like I will go back and watch this again in the next couple of years because I actually genuinely really like this movie.
Yeah.
So
I was like genuinely in awe of some of the miniature work about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
The Lahar specifically.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't get a chance to research the town specifically, but it looked like when they were knocking down walls of the buildings and stuff during the first like bit of the explosions, it looked like they were knocking down life-size walls that they built for the movie. Those didn't even look like miniatures.
No, and that's the thing. That's why I think you're right that they did do some things that were to scale, because it really is imperceptible at certain points, like when the bridges are collapsing or the overpass is collapsing and cars are going, like they look like real cars. Like they spent a lot of money to make this look good, and I really do think with both of these movies, if they were made today, I don't think they would look as good because everything would be 100% CG if this was made today.
The only way it would look good is if you had like Marvel money to throw at it.
But even Marvel has times where the CG is a little wonky. Like they would have had to make this look good. It would have to be a $250 million movie if they were to make it today. Yeah,
and I think like you said, with the first half of the movie being all about science, that is not how it would get made today. So it would end up being more bloated.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just burn through really quick. What have you been up to, bud? And then we'll get to Volcano.
Before we do that, what were name 2 of the tapes that the kid had in his hideout?
Oh, I don't know. But I will say really quick, I completely forgot about the mine, and I forget about the mine at the end of the movie every single time I watch this, because it's literally like 5 seconds of the mom, Linda Hamilton, driving up to the mine and be like, you kids, get out of here. And then like the mine is never referenced again. Like they just drive to the mine at the end of the movie. So I always forget about it every time.
One of them is Van Halen, which that makes sense. Okay. The other one was Prince Bat Dance on cassette.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome.
Batman soundtrack, 1989. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm for it.
All right.
It's a cool kid. Oh, one other thing I want to say, just really, Katrina pointed this out, so I'm going to give her credit where credit's due. But she said both of these kids were like the most generic 90s kids in cinema. And so like the daughter, she looks like the Lawrence brother who's in Mrs. Doubtfire, and she also looks like the little kid from Sleepless in Seattle in like a wig. And then like the son looks like Discount JGL.
Oh, yeah, Discount JJL. Right. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
They're just the most generic '90s kids I've ever seen in a movie. So
Yeah. The kid was wearing a Sub Pop shirt though, so he's pretty cool.
yeah, and he likes Prince and Batman
Yeah, and Van Halen.
and Van Halen.
One more thing about this movie: did the theme song did the score sound familiar to you at all?
It did, but I didn't look it up.
I couldn't find any connection between the two of them, but it is like note for note the Fallout theme song. At least
interesting.
In a few moments.
Yeah. I was more impressed with the score of Volcano, which we'll get into, but that's just because Alan Silvestri did it, and he's done.
Well, this one's James Newton Howard, so
yeah, he's still great. But
yeah,
Alan Silvestri's done so much stuff that's important to me that I just bought into his score immediately on Volcano.
I think both of them have better scores than they have any right having.
Oh, I agree. I think the music in this really, and I've got a lot to say about it in Volcano, because there are points where you literally just watch sludge for like 20 seconds just moving forward at a really slow pace in Volcano, but the music is just like, oh fuck, this shit's like gonna get us.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to, bud? Mortal Kombat was the last thing that we did, right? The last time we talked.
Yes.
It's like weird. I feel like I've watched a lot of stuff since then. So I rewatched Legally Blonde, which is delightful.
Good.
I finally watched The New Mutants.
I started that movie 3 times this week and then got like a phone call or something and just didn't watch it.
It's not worth finishing. It's ridiculous.
That's what I figured. That's what I heard.
It's also like not it's not like big swing bad. It's just like okay. Like they really should have just released it when it was supposed to be released and have been done with it. And they kept on like trying to fix it, and it's like,
well, Fox kept trying to fix it, and then Marvel's
this is never going to be a good movie.
Marvel, when they owned it, they're just like, we're going to release the director's cut. We don't give a shit about it. We just legally have to release it in theaters.
Right. Yeah. Fox should have released it.
Just cut their losses.
Whenever it was, I think it got delayed like 2 years, right?
Yeah, it got delayed 2 years.
Maisie Williams is a child.
It went through multiple sets of reshoots, like 2 or 3 sets of reshoots before Marvel got it. Marvel's like, we're not pumping any money into this. Fuck it.
Yeah. What else? I watched this movie Butter. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It's like a metaphor for the 2012 election or something, and it's about like a small town where they have a butter sculpting contest.
Nice.
It was okay.
That's a thing. That's actually really is a thing in the Midwest. Yeah, it's weird.
It's pretty weird and gross. I watched Dolomite Is My Name with Eddie Murphy.
Fantastic.
So good. And I knew it was going to be good, and I was still surprised at how good it is. Creed 2, which is better than I thought it was going to be.
I haven't seen either Creed movie.
Creed is real fucking good, and you should definitely see that. I heard that the second one wasn't quite as good, so it just kind of like fell off my radar, and I finally got around to it, and it was like very good. It's not as good as the first one, but
Michael B. Jordan's gonna direct the third one. It'll be his directorial debut, and
Rocky's not gonna be in it.
Yeah, good.
I think he wants to do like a bunch more of them. It seems like.
Good. Let him.
I revisited Tropic Thunder.
Oh, so good. I watched that a couple months ago.
It holds up, man. It's still pretty fun.
Yeah, hilarious.
I watched both or the first 2 Rush Hours.
Nice.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to go back to that. At least the first couple.
I want to do like a little Jackie Chan binge. I want to get into like I Rumble in the Bronx was like the first one that I watched, so I want to like watch that and some of the other American ones, and then go back and watch like the Chinese ones that I never saw.
You and I were talking about possibly doing Rush Hour and Shanghai Noon, and saying that they're borderline remakes of each other. Just one's a Western and one's a Western buddy cop, and one's a modern day buddy cop.
Could we watch Rush Hour 3 and a Shanghai Noon?
No.
Damn it. I revisited Training Day.
Nice.
Yeah. Real fun.
We're playing chess, not checkers.
So good, man. King Kong ain't got shit on me. And then last night we finished Jupiter's Legacy.
Huh? Well, since you're finishing that one, I watched 4 episodes of Jupiter's Legacy, so I'm halfway through. And
I want to talk with you about it.
We could take let's take a minute. So I'll just give you like 30 seconds of my piece. I thought first episode, I was like, this kind of is barely better than CW quality. And then like there's a little twist at the end of the first episode. I was like, oh, cool. I like that. Like here's something they subverted, and I'm not going to spoil it, but like there was a twist with the villain at the end. I was like, that's actually kind of interesting. I'm going to watch. And then like I watched 3 more episodes over the weekend, and like it's a whole lot of nothing. And like some of the special effects are good, but any of the characters that are flying, like the wire work is terribly bad, where the special effects are fine, but it's just masked by really bad wire work, so it cheapens the overall aesthetic of the show.
Yeah. It's so funny that you said it's like CW type stuff, because that's exactly what we said too.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually like
nothing.
I'm baffled at how bad it is.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I don't even want to say it's bad. It's just it's a
you
nothing burger.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't finished it. I think I think it gets worse. Because it's like it's written by Mark Millar, which you have whatever opinion you want of him, but he has told interesting stories. He's told stories that have done well.
Yeah,
between
I like a lot of stuff.
Wanted,
Kick-Ass, Nemesis, Wanted. Yeah,
exactly. And The Kingsman.
Yeah.
And it's directed, or the pilot is directed by Stephen DeKnight. I assume that he's the showrunner as well.
Yeah, he was.
He did Daredevil. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to do an action superhero show. And Netflix is pumping like hundreds of millions of dollars.
When they said they were going to start not a cinematic universe, but they were going to start an
it
extended
is
universe with it.
It is a cinematic universe.
Yeah, they're going to start an extended universe. It's not technically cinematic.
A Netflix.
They're going to start a Millarverse. Miller. Some people say Millar, and I think it's weird, but it's Miller.
I've heard Millar.
Yeah, I've heard both, but
well, anyway, he sucks.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's crazy how bad it is. I think you're exactly right. It does enough to hook you in for the first few episodes, and then it kind of strings you along towards the end. And it's only 8 episodes, so we got to 7 or 6 or 5, and we were like, I don't know. We might as well finish it though, and we got to 7.
That's how I was
8,
with the first season of.
Why did we even bother with this whole thing?
That's how I was with the first season of Fear the Walking Dead. Like the first season was only like 6 episodes or something like that, and I was like 5 episodes in. I'm like, this show fucking sucks. And then like the next week, like at the end of that episode's like next week on the season finale. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll fucking finish it. And I have never gone back to Fear the Walking Dead after season 1.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be returning to this.
I didn't realize Big Mouth season 4 came out like 2 or 3 months ago. So I watched all of that, and the first 2 episodes are kind of where they're in a summer camp, but the rest of it's actually probably the best season of Big Mouth. So I enjoyed that.
Much love to John Mulaney.
Better,
just
buddy. Announced that he is getting a divorce. It's sad.
I know.
Mythic Quest, I guess season 2 is completely out, and I didn't but I watched the special episode that came out last month.
So only 2 episodes.
Oh, is it only 2? So I watched the Everlight special that came out like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I watched that, and it was all right. I'm very like hot and cold with that show. Like I think every episode has one great joke that it builds up to, and there's always one scene that I laugh my ass off, but overall I think it's I went and saw Wrath of Man in theaters, that Jason Statham Guy Ritchie movie. It's like the exact definition of just a movie. It's very, very meh. I wouldn't recommend.
Like bad action.
There's not as much action as you would think there would be for a Jason Statham Guy Ritchie movie. Like there's only really like 2 action scenes, and it's just kind of meh. Like and like they don't. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's just like there's no real love for any of the characters. Like I don't feel or care about any of them. Anybody, including Jason Statham, because there's a little bit of a twist. Like if you watch the trailer, you would have no idea what Jason Statham's character is actually like, because the trailer makes it just seem like, oh, he's a dad who lost his son, but there's a little bit more to it than that. And then I went and revisited The Raid Redemption, and
I saw that.
It's fucking sick. And the only thing I forgot how much handheld cameras in it, so it's a little disorienting and a little dizzy, but it's still one of the best martial art movies ever made.
Joe Taslim.
Yep, Joe Taslim. That's why I went back and did it, because Mortal Kombat. I was like, I want to watch something else that he did. Yeah. So I'm also going to go back and I'm going to go and watch Warrior on not Netflix, HBO Max.
Fuck yeah, I love.
He's in that too.
The TV show Warrior.
Yeah,
I got to check that out. I really like the Tom Hardy Warrior movie too.
Yeah, that one's really good. And it also has Joel Edgerton
and Nick Nolte.
Yeah. So Volcano. Hit us up with the synopses.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones plays a divorced father of a little girl, and
Also on vacation.
also on vacation, and also starts getting signs that something ain't right in the neighborhood. But he's not a volcanologist. He's the head of the Office of Emergency Management, who the movie makes a big point of saying can take control of the city's emergency services at a moment's notice if there's an emergency. But they never really. It never follows up on that.
That was just like a text overview, like just like at the beginning of the movie, it was like Volcano, and there's an office based in Los Angeles for the operations of emergency management. If there's a fire, earthquake, flood, this office can take over all resources and management of the city. I think what probably happened is there was a test screening, and people were like, "Why was he allowed to do all this shit?" And so they probably just threw that on the front end.
There should have been just like a line of dialogue that said. It does, I mean, you don't even need to know all of that, right?
Right.
Test audiences are idiots because I don't think that you even need to explain that. It's the Office of Emergency Management. What do you think he does?
Right.
So anyway, Tommy Lee Jones is on vacation, but is a workaholic. So he ends up going into the office on his day off anyway, right? And
well, to be fair, there was a big earthquake.
Right. There's like a little earthquake, and the big earthquake is later.
Yeah.
There's a little earthquake, and it rocks a subway tunnel, and some of the construction workers end up getting killed. And one of them is like, "Oh, it was so hot," and Tommy Lee Jones is kind of like, "Oh man, steam doesn't do this kind of burning." So they call in Anne Heche, who's the other lead, and she's a science. She's like a seismologist, geologist, scientist person, and she starts investigating and getting bad vibes from what's going on too. But no one around them is taking it seriously, and things get
except for Don Cheadle.
Except for Don Cheadle, who's the fucking right-hand man, his best buddy, Tommy Lee Jones' best friend. So things get progressively worse until there's a big earthquake, just like Dante's Peak, right?
Yep.
It's a big earthquake that knocks some shit loose, and a volcano pops up out of the La Brea tar pits, and lava starts coming out.
Wilshire.
I love that. And so the second half of the movie is sort of divided into another two halves, right?
Yeah.
Which you could call, I guess it's the end of Act 2 and then Act 3, but it feels much more distinctive than that.
Yeah. So this movie definitely feels longer.
Yeah. So the first, the third quarter of the movie, the first half of the second half of the movie, is all about trying to avoid disaster with this lava. It's going down Wilshire, and they have to find a way to stop it before it gets into the more populated areas. Yeah. Oh, right. No, that's in the second half.
Yeah, that's right. There's two different points where they want to block it.
Right. The first point is they block it at Fairfax, which if you don't live in LA, then none of this means anything to you. But they want to block it before it gets to Fairfax, the big like north-south street, because if it gets there, then it's going to go down the road, down Fairfax to like more populated areas.
Until it hits the ocean.
Right. And if it goes down Fairfax, it's going to hit a lot of houses before it gets to the ocean. So they managed to build a cul-de-sac out of abandoned cars and concrete barriers, and they block off the lava, and they cool it down with the fire hoses, and there's a big like celebratory moment. And Anne Heche is like, I don't know, man, that seemed a little bit too easy. There's a lot of ash in the air, and that means that there's going to be like a bigger explosion somewhere else. So there must be more lava that we haven't seen. So they go all the way down to Western. Yeah. And they go down to the subway tunnels there, and they put a camcorder on a string down into a hole, and it gets eaten by lava, just like the ooze in Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
And they realize that there's more lava that's superheated and moving super fast
because it's going through a man-made tunnel.
Right, going through
lava's never gone through a man-made tunnel before.
Yeah, so it's insulated, it's getting superheated, and it's moving straight to the hospital, Cedars-Sinai, where Tommy Lee Jones has been sending people the entire movie, including his daughter. So they realize that it's headed towards that, and they have to build another diverging thing before it hits the Cedars-Sinai and creates an even worse problem. I'm trying to think if I'm leaving out anything else interesting.
Yeah, so one of the things you're leaving out, which it seems like it doesn't really matter until the end of the movie, but John Corbett is in this movie, and he's like running for city council or something, but he's also super rich and built like this $100 million luxury apartment tower that overlooks Cedar Sinai, and they have to blow that up to be the dam.
Oh, I was getting to that. I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure I wasn't leaving anything up to that point.
And so maybe the only other things we might want to talk about is he kind of has like pissing contests. Mike Rourke or Tommy Lee Jones has pissing contests with two people. One is he's the bald dad who's the dad in everything.
John Carroll Lynch.
Yep, him.
Who is also the Zodiac killer in David Fincher's Zodiac.
Yep. And then he was in Chicago Trial of the Chicago 7. He's really good in that as well. But he's
also in Fargo.
He's in a lot of things. He's
incredible at everything.
I looked him up. He's got like 160, close to 160 IMDb credits. He's in fucking everything.
He's one of our greatest living character actors.
Absolutely. So he's the head of the MTA or the traffic. He runs the metro and the farms. What the fuck? The subways, the metro trains, and the buses. So he has a pissing contest with him because all this shit's going down in the subway.
He's sort of the Callahan of this movie.
Correct. But then
Not
there's
a boss,
also
an authority figure.
And I don't know if maybe this got cut or whatever, but there's also like an unseen antagonist who's like the chief of police that is only playing phone tag. Like, so he talks to Don Cheadle, and you never hear the voice. It's just Don Cheadle's like, I've got the chief of police on the phone, and Tommy Lee Jones is like, I'm not going to talk to him. So then the chief of police will talk to Don Cheadle, and then Don Cheadle will say something to Tommy Lee Jones, and Tommy Lee Jones is like, meh. He's just Tommy Lee Jones about.
Both of these movies are very, both of these movies make a point to talk about bureaucracy.
Oh, for sure.
But okay, just to finish up the story. So they have this superheated, extra super lava headed towards the hospital, and they have to divert that somehow. So what they end up doing is saying, all right, we're going to blow, there's a creek, down the way or whatever. Like, it's basically the LA River. We need to get it there, but to get the lava to there, which will go to the ocean, we need to build a trench for 500 yards or whatever it is. So they drill a bunch of holes in the street, and they dynamite the street to connect the underwater or the underground tunnel where the lava is to this to the LA River stretch. But they also need to knock down a building to create a dam to make sure that it makes that turn instead of continuing to head, like, I guess it's like downhill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they knock down this building developer's dam, or building to make a dam and protect everyone at the hospital. And as they're doing that, his daughter, who is dealing with the divorce and like has to have a babysitter even though she's 14 or whatever, and she's kind of being a rebel, she realizes that she has to be responsible for something, and she's been put in charge of taking care of a couple of the kids at the hospital satellite area, and she chases one of the kids who's like run off through the Hard Rock casino
into the building they're gonna blow up.
Into the building they're gonna blow up, and Mike Rourke like sees her from eagle eye fucking 80-year-old guy vision from 800 yards away, and he does like a full sprint across this whole thing blowing up, and I like go grab her.
I wrote that down too. But Anne Heche, who's like conservatively a mile away, because she's actually at the hospital, she sees him seeing
and they do
her,
the zoom.
and they zoom in, and it's seriously like the time it takes to zoom in on camera, it was like 5 or 6 seconds. It's just like, it would seriously be like if you were just on the street during like a parade, and you see one person a mile away. Like, it just, it's fucking dumb. I
mean, to be fair, she's looking at a place where there are no people, and she's able to see a person, but it's kind of silly that she can make out that it's him.
Yeah, it's just no way.
So anyway, they divert the lava, it goes out to the ocean, and the movie ends with this like little volcano on La Brea and Wilshire, and they say, new volcano, Mount Wilshire status active.
Yeah.
Credits.
And then it has I Love LA by Randy Newman.
I love LA.
So a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into some like of the set pieces is this movie definitely has like some themes and motifs that like span the whole movie. So like the movie starts with like new segments of like gang violence, and then also like all these like crazy things that celebrities are doing to stay young and everything, like really just trying to like play up the LA extravagant lifestyle, but also like the disparity of like wealth and racial inequality.
LA shit.
And it comes up like throughout the movie. There's times where like there's a black neighborhood and it's on fire, and like a guy goes to try to get the police and the firefighters to help, and they like arrest him for nothing. Like they put him in handcuffs, and and there's this whole redemption of like, oh, the cops aren't so bad, they let this guy out, and he ended up staying and helped the firefighters build the dam. So then they went and helped. But at the end of the movie, just before the typeface like Mount Wilshire active, there's a point where like Keith David, he takes the little kid that the daughter was taking care of, and he's like, where's your mommy? And he's like, I don't know, everybody looks the same. And you just see everybody because they're covered in ash and everything, and it's just like really trying to hammer home. It was very effective. Yeah, and it was very effective.
It's chilling because it literally looks like 9/11.
Oh, for sure. And that's another thing that I really appreciate, just like another difference.
Just to be clear, this movie is 4 years before 9/11.
Correct. One of the things I like about this one, and that that they did better, is like once the ash starts going, everything is covered in ash, including the actors. And then especially at the very end of the movie, everything's just completely coated in ash. Where in Dante's Peak, one of the things I noticed, everybody was covered in ash, and it was all hazy and smoky and everything. You couldn't see anything for parts of the movie until they got to the grandma's house, and then all of a sudden they were like clean, and they're going over the lake, and like they were not covered in ash or anything. So I thought that was a little wonky.
There's no ash in the lake either. Yeah,
but one of the things I liked about Dante's Peak is they made a point like Pierce Brosnan, like when the rich guy and the asshole helicopter pilot who like after we didn't bring this up, but in Dante's Peak, one of the geologists like breaks their leg on top of the mountain. They need to get like airlifted out, and so like there was a pilot that was flying them there, and he basically price gouged him and said, oh, if I'm gonna fly you injured, I'm gonna charge you more. And at the end of the movie, like the rich developer who's gonna pull out of the town, they get in a helicopter, and Pierce Brosnan like, you can't fly with all this ash. It's gonna get sucked into the engine intake, and it's gonna stall your engine. You're gonna crash and die. In this movie, there are fucking helicopters everywhere, dumping water, just news cameras and everything. And they definitely would not have been able to do that. Helicopters don't really do well over heat because of the way air moves over heat, and then also all that ash. So I did think that it was interesting how like each movie did something realistic better than the other one. Because I did a little bit of research, and scientists like at the end of the year were like, oh no, Dante's Peak is definitely the more scientifically accurate movie. But I did think it was interesting.
But it's not perfect.
It's not perfect, but I did think it was interesting, like the different ways they handled ash in the movie, and then the pilots.
And also the idea that a volcano would erupt in the La Brea tar pits is
comical,
ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
there's not a fault there. Like there'd have to, I mean, I'm no geologist, but I think there would have to be a lot of unprecedented events.
Well, especially for like the size of the earthquake. So like they mentioned like Anne Hayes tries to be, and she's more like the generic scientist. Like they say she's the geologist, but like you never really see her doing science. Like she goes down into the tunnel once, but they're just like, what is all this? There's this yellow coating. It's like, dude, even me as a geologist, not being a geologist, when I see yellow soot or steam or smoke, I go, that's sulfur.
Yeah.
And everything. And they're like, what is this? But she has this little like,
if you had to venture a guess.
Yeah. She does this little thing where she goes, talking down to Tommy Lee Jones, she goes, the how earthquakes work, like there's tectonic plates, and sometimes they rub against each other or they move, and that's what causes earthquakes. Well, this earthquake that happened in Palmdale, and they say it was only like a 4.6, which is not a big earthquake at all. Like,
nope.
It's big enough to feel, but it's not going to do crazy amounts of damage. But they're like, that earthquake shifted the plates and created the volcano. It's like, really? A 4.6 created an earthquake? We have bigger earthquakes than that literally every year in Los Angeles.
Yeah. But, I firmly believe that movies get one gimme at the beginning to say, this is why the movie's happening.
Right.
This might be a little unbelievable, but if you have faith in us for this one thing at the beginning, and go along for the ride, you'll have a good time. That's why I get upset when movies in the third act are like, well, maybe this isn't a thing that really is believable, but we're going to do it anyway. It's like, no. You get one of those at the beginning. You don't get to pull it out of thin air at the end. That's a Deus Ex Machina. Since you brought it up, I think that this movie is kind of trying to make a point about anti-gentrification and class divide. Yeah. They make a few times One of the characters says, downtown crime is making its way west. One of the subplots is John Carroll Lynch's character is doing construction on the new Red Line, and it's working its way into by the Cedars-Sinai Hospital, which is like the gateway to Beverly Hills, basically.
Yep.
It's where the Beverly Hills Connection Mall is, or the Beverly Center. And that's funny because they are actually running the Purple Line in there now.
Yeah. It literally stops like right by the Beverly Center, which is like
so that's
a
like
minute away from your house.
Yeah, exactly. All of this stuff took place walking distance from my house. It's crazy. But yeah, John Carroll Lynch's character is building the new Red Line station down there, and the building developer is, has his building at ground zero for the second eruption of lava, and he's like taking part in that the political rally at the beginning, right, where they're saying, we don't want the Red Line coming in here, downtown crime is making its way west, all the junkies and blah blah blah, the criminals are going to take the Red Line out here, and they're going to bring all the crime and drugs and prostitution or whatever into Beverly Hills. And then where they first discover the quake is MacArthur Park, which is like downtown adjacent, but they're calling it downtown here, and I think that's just like they don't want to explain Los Angeles geography to people, which is fine. Totally understand that. But they're basically saying like they're showing, what is downtown.
It's where all the little paddle boats are. You've seen it in like every movie that takes place in Los
Angeles. It's low income. There are some homeless people there or whatever.
It's but great the movie's for Pokemon Go.
The movie's trying to like make a point of showing both of those places.
Yeah.
And illustrating this like class divide, and then that also shows up in the cop and the black guy story thread, where the black guy is just trying to get some fire trucks to his neighborhood so that whatever it is, I think the movie is trying to say it's like Compton or something, doesn't burn down. And the
Stanley
cop is
Street.
like,
it's like literally a block over from where they were.
Yeah, and the cop, but the movie is trying to say like this is the black area.
Yeah.
And the cop is like, you know what, you're mouthing off too much, I'm going to put you in handcuffs. And the guy's like, there's a volcano here, what are you talking about, you're going to bring me downtown?
Right. So
and then they give him a little pat on the back. They're like, the cop like ends up letting him go because he helped out lifting a piece of rebar or whatever. And the cop's like, you know what, we're not so different, you and I.
And then another cop is like, you're a good man, to the cop that like
I fucking rolled my eyes out of the back of my head, dude.
Yeah, me too. So I just want to hit a couple of like pretty major beats.
Oh, I'm sorry. And one more thing. Anne Heche, not Anne Hathaway, has a moment where she says the city's paying for his arrogance. Yeah. I think that's like what the movie is about.
I agree. Absolutely. So just a couple like big events. So one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was at the beginning of the movie, what kind of set off all the events was at MacArthur Park, like 7 tunnel workers died because there was like they said it was a steam explosion. But one of the guys survived and ended up going to Cedars-Sinai, but he was like burned almost exactly like in half and everything.
Like
so I thought he was Two-Face. Yeah. I was wondering, and this is like a year after Batman Forever. So I'm wondering if they just did that as like a silly nod to Tommy Lee Jones being Two-Face.
What did they call me at Internal Affairs of the Metro Department?
I don't want to say. Say it. Harvey
Say
Two-Face. So the other thing that I thought was interesting, just to show like the Anne Heche scientist versus the Pierce Brosnan scientist, like she goes down and doesn't really seem to understand anything. The whole time Tommy Lee Jones is like, dude, I'll do whatever you want, you just need to give me proof. And she's like, well, I don't know how to get you proof. You're a fucking scientist, like that's your job, is to like investigate and find the answers. So she like goes down with her like number 2 into the tunnel when they're not supposed to be down there, and her like number 2 literally straddles this crack where people have died previously.
Can I do a quick sidebar?
Yes.
Talking about her number 2 straddling something, there's a moment in this movie where Anne Heche walks around this woman, or just like walks by her, and like if you were kind of picking up on what a colleague was saying, you might put a hand on their shoulder and just like start talking. That sort of like a non-verbal way of communicating.
Yeah.
She does that, but she puts her hand around her friend's neck, and then just for a moment,
what?
And then walks
I missed
away.
That. That's fucking weird, man. So
and I was like, what the fuck?
So we don't see the initial explosion that killed the 7 people. But there's a point where Tommy Lee Jones and like one of his guys go down and they notice like, oh shit, like it's going to happen. They run down the tunnel and they close like a blast door just before it explodes. But like you see the steam like following them as they're running down the hall. Well, when Anne Heche and her like number two
Dead.
girl are there, the steam just goes straight up and just vaporizes her colleague, but luckily doesn't go sideways like it had done every other time, because they make a point. They're like, it was seriously like hundreds of feet away from like the fissure where like everybody died. They're like, oh, here's where everybody died. You can see all the scorch marks that, you know, from their bodies. But Anne Heche got lucky when it didn't explode out. It only exploded up. So I thought that was a little funny.
And it also like doesn't just dissipate; it gets sucked back into the fissure.
Yeah, super weird.
They literally reversed the film.
Yeah. And then I want to talk about two jumps in this movie. So there's a jump, and you mentioned that the daughter at one point had to feel responsible for taking care of somebody. I do want to point out that the daughter is responsible for 2 firefighters' deaths. Because there's a firefighter that, like, they flip the truck, and there's, like, lava coming for the truck, and then Tommy Lee Jones goes, and he's like, I'm going to save this firefighter. And then his daughter just, like, screams. She's feet away from lava, but just stands there and watches it like spray her, and she gets like a little burn on her leg, and she's like, Dad! Ooh. and so like the dad, Tommy Lee Jones, leaves this firefighter to die. So another firefighter's like, what the fuck? And just jumps in to go save his partner, and then like the fire truck like blows up. And so like
that moment was brutal.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's fucked up.
The fire truck is like turned on its side, and there's a firefighter pinned underneath the steering wheel or whatever, and another one climbs on top and goes in the door and is like, come on, buddy, I'll get you out of here. And as he's doing that, the lava is like creeping up, and it just like, you keep on thinking like, oh, at the last minute Tommy Lee Jones is gonna run over and just like pull them both out,
or they're gonna kick the window out
or something.
Yeah,
and it doesn't happen.
No,
and then to like put a
up.
finer. And then the movie is like, to put a finer point on it, here's an action figure on the front of the fire truck of a firefighter, and we're gonna let you see it,
watch it melt. Yeah. So,
it's fucking
but what's
brutal.
interesting is there's a point where like the lava's going, and Tommy Lee Jones like gets up on his Jeep, and he's like, come on, daughter, get up on the Jeep. And then like the lava goes all around the Jeep and lights on fire. And like conservatively, there's like a 10-foot pool of lava on either side of the truck, and he picks her up and jumps, like not even a running jump, just from like standing still, jumps 10-ish feet over lava.
He's
lands
60.
Yeah, he's super old. He's Tommy Lee Jones. And I was like, damn, that's really impressive. But then our MTA guy, he gets his heroic number. Stan, he gets his heroic thing where he goes, all the trains are magically safe except for one, and we see it. And I brought this up towards the beginning of the episode, what I really appreciate. All the passengers are like in this tunnel. They're like, God damn, it's hot. Shit, it's hot. Damn. And then like lava eventually gets to the point under, and like the MTA rescue crew shows up, and like everybody's unconscious because they passed out from the heat and they couldn't get out. So they're like getting everybody out. And Stan, he's like, oh, where's the driver? I gotta go get the driver. And so he goes all the way to the front of the train and gets the driver, and he's walking back slow, and you see his shoes are melting as he's stepping, and he jumps into the lava heroically and then throws the man. Now at this point the lava is only maybe 3 or 4 feet past the train, so it's a much
no. I have a vivid memory of that moment because they have like a wide shot of like of how far the shit is, and there's no way he could have made that jump.
Yeah, but
Tommy Lee Jones one is like kind of silly.
Yeah,
but like Stan knew he was gonna die.
He jumps in, and it's a very similar moment to the grandma dying in Dante's Peak. So he jumps in and he throws the guy heroically, and then he dissolves like over the course of like 3 days. He just like dissolves in. It's like a old school internet when you would dial up internet, when you would like open up a picture and you'd see it go line by line load. It's like the reverse of that, like line by line going away. And it's like, that's not how lava works. Like
that was still a really effective moment.
It's a super effective moment. And the only thing I remembered about
a union
this movie,
man, and he's a blue collar hero.
Yeah, it's the only thing I remembered about this movie going into it was that particular scene. But it's also like, for what it's worth, if you were to fall in lava, if you fell straight in face first, you would die instantly. But you can actually see it. What ends up happening is it actually burns, and then it hits the moisture, and it actually starts to form a crust. So you would still burn, and you would actually die from like inhalation and like you getting internally vaporized. It would still be incredibly painful, but apparently you would die really quick. You wouldn't actually feel the pain for more than a second or so, apparently, is what people are saying when they dissected this particular scene. But he's gone. Like, he just doesn't exist at the end of that scene.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird. But I mean that's
yes, but also I think like the moment still worked.
oh, it's very effective. You're just like, damn, this guy was a good guy all along. Like, and the whole time when he's like being a bureaucrat and not wanting to shut things down, it's all
he's
about
being a hard ass.
But he's also like, if we do this and there's no reason, like, give me the proof and I'll do it. But if you don't, like, this is 3 million people who can't get home today.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything. There's hundreds of thousands of people take this train.
Man.
Hundreds of thousands of people take this bus. And then we're going to have to do all this. Like, you're going to do that. And then there's also a point where they want to shut down the power. And the chief of police is like, that's going to be 3 million people without power. They can't cook. What are they going to do? So it's like the bureaucracy stuff isn't just, it's not like Ghostbusters where the guy is just being an asshole bureaucrat to be an asshole bureaucrat. Like there is legitimate concern in this movie about taking the actions that Tommy Lee Jones wants to take. So I actually think this is much more effective than like pretty much any other disaster movie. Both of these movies, like the bureaucrats have points in both movies. And I actually really appreciate that it's not just like bureaucrat bad, hero good. Like there is some gray areas in this that they're not necessarily bad people for wanting to not shut this shit down. So
yeah, I agree. I think there's surprisingly fleshed out secondary characters.
Yeah. So anything else before we kind of make a decision on which one's the Armageddon, which one's the Deep Impact?
Yeah, I feel like this is a very LA movie.
I can definitely say,
and that's not to discredit at all, but there are so many things that it's playing up because it's about LA. For instance, like I think it's the site of the first lava explosion, not La Brea tar pits, but that's another thing. But then like later on, it starts right at the intersection where I think it's the old Directors Guild building, or maybe it's the Writers Guild. It's like a very recognizable film industry building, and it's right across the street from where they build the dam to stop the lava. There's like there's an Angeline billboard that falls down.
Yeah.
And they get like 3 shots of it. Like her face falls onto somebody or something. There's like looting in Beverly Hills and they're in front of a Whole Foods and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just shit like that. Like it's very aware of its audience.
Yeah, well, what I like about some of the stuff during all that stuff, when you're seeing all the stuff going to hell just before they think that they win and they stop the first flow, is that they mention, they're like, this is just malls and just museums and everything. Like we're led to believe like this doesn't really matter because this is just stuff, and everything else at this point, if we don't stop it, as people, which I really appreciated, where they're like, we can lose all these other things. We could lose the Beverly Center. That doesn't fucking matter. We just can't lose the people. So I really liked that. But yeah, before we get into we make this final decision, I do want to talk about the special effects, since we talked a lot about the special effects in the other one. I think these were great I think they still stood out today. Like the lava for the most part was practical. There are definitely points where as the lava's going through and like windows were blowing up was definitely CG, but it was used sparingly. But I feel like this one felt more dated than Dante's Peak in terms of special effects, because I felt like this one leaned a little bit more on digital effects. But it's still very, very good. Like I still think this looks better than a lot of movies that come out today.
Yeah, it still holds up for sure, and I think Dante's Peak was just better, which is a testament to how good their practical effects are.
Absolutely.
And how good the digital effects are as well. I think we're going to make a decision now, and my final thought here is weirdly, I think that Volcano. Well, let me back up. What we're trying to decide is which one is shallow and which one has substance, right?
Correct.
That's your charge here.
Yeah.
So weirdly, I think that Volcano is clearly the Armageddon, right?
Yes, I would say
it's
that
like
would be
fantastical. It's fantastical. It's very pulpy. It's not about a small town.
Everything's on the nose. There's no substance.
It's very real characters.
It's all on the surface.
Based
There's no
on
subtext.
Accuracy. But see, that's where I disagree. I think Volcano actually has more on its mind than Dante's Peak. I think it doesn't execute it very well. And I'm talking about like the cop and the black guy here specifically. But I think even if it doesn't execute it as well, it does try to bring up like class and race inequities in dialogue and in story. We're talking about, the downtown crime making its way west, and like I'm getting really heady, I guess, but the lava is a metaphor for the downtown quote unquote crime making its way to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, that's fair.
In my mind.
I didn't get
I
that, but
think
yeah, I guess
Dante's,
you could. John Corbett would
I
say
mean,
so.
yeah. I think that's there, and you don't have to get it to enjoy the movie. And I think you could also argue that it's not really there or not told well enough to meaningfully be there. But I think that the director had that on their mind when they were doing that, and I felt it and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think Dante's Peak does a better job of telling a smaller, less ambitious story. And it does kind of brush up on like bureaucracy and manifest destiny or whatever with the grandma.
Yeah.
But I think I think Volcano deserves some props for taking a swing at some bigger stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting that this movie, I think Volcano has less of a legacy than Dante's Peak. I think everybody remembers Dante's Peak. Everybody remembers that grandma scene. I don't think everybody remembers Volcano. And I think I didn't pick up on that metaphor with the lava, but I think for the most part, everything with like the police and the black guy and the wealth inequality, it was all like explicitly said and very on the surface. And it was just like, I felt like it was a blockbuster popcorn flick, which these both are. Like, don't get me wrong, these are both like popcorn flicks, but I think this one was a popcorn flick that was trying to be highbrow and have all these like subcontext, but it would I just don't think it actually did. It was just very, it was almost like a 13-year-old being like, racism's bad. Like, it's just like, it's explicit, like there wasn't anything to really interpret in my opinion, but and I don't think the effects were quite as good, and like you said, it was you know, comical. Like there's certain points that are very comical in this one, and like the romance was like forced in this one. Like there's literally a scene where
that was really weird to me,
and
they were trying to,
it was just weird.
Anne Heche and Tommy Lee Jones, and like the age difference is weird, and then also the fact that they were like bonding over this weird 24-hour period where tons of people are dying or almost dying, and also they have like almost no rapport.
There's no chemistry.
Yeah, there's no chemistry. So the movie is just kind of like, you guys are together, and her girlfriend that she chokes is also like, do I sense a spark there? And Anne Heche is like, I don't know, maybe. And the viewers are like, what are you talking about? There's nothing.
She doesn't even say maybe. Initially she was just like, well, he's brash and he doesn't listen and he's bureaucratic, and she goes, oh, so you do like him? And she's like, okay, I guess. And then like,
yeah,
I don't remember. And then the lady was like, well, he likes you too. But like, based on what? Come on.
But I do think that both of these movies, and I'm going to stick up a little bit more for Volcano here, I think both these movies have moments that are genuinely terrifying or like awe-inspiring. Like I think they make, if not the most, they make a lot of their situation. There's the scene where they get stuck on the ladder.
That was
Volcano,
that was really tense. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it goes on for a long time. It's a really well done scene. I think the grandmother pushing the boat, actually even before that, but in Dante's Peak when they're going through the water and the acid starts eating through the boat, that's a long, tense scene. And you're like, how the fuck are they going to get out of this? I think that worked really well. There's a moment in Volcano where all of the sound cuts out, and it's been like 20 minutes of like roaring volcano.
I thought there was something wrong for a second.
It's like what Rian Johnson did in Star Wars. Like all of a sudden it's just quiet, and you're like, oh, something awful is about to happen. And I thought they executed the big explosion right after that very well.
The only other thing I want to bring up before we wrap it up is Alan Silvestri doing the score on this, and he's obviously Back to the Future. He's done a lot of the Marvel stuff. He's done so many things, but like there are literally 5 to 10 second scenes where you literally just see lava slowly, where it's like that's all you see is you just see like an inch of pavement on the screen, and then the rest of it's just orange lava, but the music is just like like almost like Speed, and it's just like I was like, fuck, this lava's intense, man. I thought the score really, I think Volcano could have really been a lot worse if it didn't have the score that it had. Like if somebody else did this and had like a less tense, frenetic score at certain points, I think Volcano could have been laughably bad. But I think the score elevated it.
This is like an interesting other side of the coin to the Jupiter's Legacy thing, where Hollywood movies in general, not even Hollywood, but movies require a lot of moving parts, and some people can bring their A game some days and other people don't. Some people completely blow it, and you know, something can still work because an actor is lifting up a score that's not quite there, or vice versa,
Right.
or whatever. And movies that are good can be completely blown because the special effects aren't up to par or whatever. And there are movies where everyone's on their A game and you end up getting, The Godfather or There Will Be Blood or Jaws or whatever. And there's like Jupiter's Legacy is something where even people bringing their B or C game should have ended up in a very watchable show, and it ends up being like a slog and a fucking mess. And there's other stuff like Volcano where I think Tommy Lee Jones is not bringing it 100%. He's there and he's
doing what he always does. Yeah.
And like Anne Heche isn't doing anything special. The special effects are dated, but they're still pretty good.
I think it was all those side characters.
But the score is picking up a lot of slack. There's a ton of really incredible character actors. Richard Schiff is in this as well. Keith David we mentioned, John Carroll Lynch obviously.
Don Cheadle's
there's a lot
fantastic
of people,
in it.
Don Cheadle before he was Don Cheadle. A lot of people putting in good work. And again, like Volcano has, from a writing perspective, a lot of moments that it doesn't have any right having. There's an Hieronymus Bosch joke.
Yeah.
Hey man, this painting's heavy. Well, Hieronymus Bosch dealt with a lot of things revolving around death and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, man, I think both these movies are better than they had any right really being.
I think they're both really fun. I luckily, like, to buy Volcano, I already owned Dante's Peak, but Volcano was only $1 more to buy it than it was to rent it. So I bought it.
It's worth it.
I'm going to watch it again at some point. It was a fun movie, but I definitely think it's the Armageddon. I definitely think it was more effective to me now that I live in LA, because I recognized everything everywhere in this movie. Same thing with the Fast and Furious, as we went through and rewatched those last year for the bonus episodes. Like, now that I live here, like the Fast and the Furious movies, I'm like Leonardo DiCaprio in the meme pointing. I know that. But
isn't that a funny thing? Like, it weirdly lifts up some movies and drags down other
But it also
movies.
takes me out sometimes, because sometimes, like,
that's what I'm saying.
They use the Fox Hill Mall in like everything. So like movies that take place in the Midwest, I see the mall from Culver City. I'm like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're constantly at that mall, and I'm like, that's in Culver City.
Yeah, and there's things where they're like, well, we're in downtown. We've got to get to Santa Monica. It should just be a 20-minute drive or something.
Nope.
But
yeah, these are fun movies, and we'll definitely come back to this topic at some point again. There's a lot.
I want to say, I think the perfect merging of these two movies is Greenland with our friend, whatever his name is.
Gerard Butler.
That's the one.
I want to watch that. I just haven't got around to it. I need to.
You should watch it, and then we'll talk about how it's like a blend of these two.
Okay. But tell us where our listeners can find you, and we're going to start wrapping this bitch up.
Yeah, I'm on the Instagrams at Dyslexic, DYSAlexIC. I'm on Twitter, tweeting nonsense at Pulisci, PULISCI. And you can follow along with the movies that I'm watching on Letterboxd, also at Pulisci.
And you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. I need to start plugging the YouTube. We're also on YouTube if you want to listen to it that way. We need some more subscribers on there, so go subscribe to our YouTube as well. It's linked in the episode's description. Also, check out our Patreon. We uploaded another Patreon exclusive episode. We watched Mortal Kombat Annihilation, so you don't have to. So yeah, go check that out. And we're gonna be doing some zombie movies this month because of the Army of the Dead coming out. So we're probably gonna have that as a bonus episode this month on Patreon, and then we'll also be covering Dawn of the Dead or some other zombie remakes at some point to coincide with that movie. So check us out. We've got some good things coming, and thanks for listening.
Yep.